Nintendo Cartridge Society presents NCS Classic Edition, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, Part 4. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. Mark, how are you?
Pretty good. How's it going, Patrick?
It's going great. Let's talk about Donkey Kong Country 2. So look, we had a bit of a revelation, I think, while we were playing this today, that like the fewer conversations that we make ourselves have about it, the better.
I
right?
think so. We're not loving this game.
We're not loving this game.
So we made it through Crazy Kremland and Gloomy Gulch.
Yep.
And I think we had a easier time playing these than Kremquay. Would you say that's true?
Yes. I think we probably even liked it more, and yeah, it wasn't as arduous as getting through that. World 3 was really tough on us, and Worlds 4 and 5 are still no picnic, but like overall maybe a less stressful experience. I don't know what made it less stressful this time.
So I think part of it is that we had taken a break between
Great
playing
point.
Kremquay and booting it up again. But I guess my question is, it probably took us about an hour and 45 minutes on average for each world.
Sure.
Which is not a crazy unreasonable amount of time, I don't think. And Donkey Kong Country 2 is the most well regarded of these original 3 rare Donkey Kong Country games.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I think that's right.
I guess my question is, why do we kind of hate this game?
I mean, it's a good question. I'm developing a little bit of a theory here where I think that for as much as this is a sequel to Donkey Kong Country, it is in some ways a stealth sequel to Battletoads, because the game has a lot of qualities of Battletoads, including the over-reliance on like 90s cool characters, right? So that's one thing. The second is these levels that require memorization, or that are like fast-moving, kind of like side-scrolly things, or there's this like up and down vertical level where you're descending, a lot like that second Battletoads level. And when we started fighting the last boss, which is Creepy Crow, who is a ghost vulture, Diddy and Dixie, their eyes bulge out of their heads and their jaws drop to the floor, like the Battletoads do at the beginning of all of their boss fights. I think this game is secretly a Battletoads game without the Battletoads characters.
And that's bad news.
That's bad news, yeah.
I don't have a problem with difficult games. I think what I am finding frustrating with this game is like what you were saying, where there's nothing that it's just rote memorization. So
Yeah.
let's take like the Gusty
Glade.
Gusty Glade as an example.
Right, so this is maybe the second or third level in Gloomy Gulch.
In Gloomy Gulch. So you're running through it, and the wind shifts, and the way that the wind shifts determines, like if you have to push against it to move forward, or if you can let it carry you, depending on which way the wind is blowing or gusting. And that's all well and good, except there's no rhyme or reason to when it changes direction, except you just have to learn it. Where it's just like, oh, you hit a point, and now it is going to fling me this way. Oh, I'm dead? Well, now I know that when it hit this point. It's not like, I don't think you could make it through this level
on your first try. Yeah, and I think there are a lot of levels like that in these two worlds and in the rest of the game, where it's just like everything every turn that you encounter, there's no way to anticipate it. You just have to experience it, fail, and go again. While we were playing, I was thinking about how ridiculous it is that there are lives in this game. There shouldn't be lives. Like, there's no reason that you should have to collect those things. It should just be an infinitely not forgiving, like you can still make mistakes, but like to kick you back out for failing. Like the whole game is about failing over and over again.
Yeah, but I think that's bad design.
Yeah, yes.
I think my personal opinion is that a game where you don't stand a chance to complete a level unless you have
Memorized
it. I think that's bad design.
See, I think there's a way that can be good design. Like Super Meat Boy is that way, right? Where like it intends for you to fail over and over again, and Meat Boy compensates for it by having small levels and instant respawn. So there's like literally no downtime between when you fail and when you try again. And I think that would go a long way if we fell off a cliff and then like immediately we're back at like the last checkpoint and the game were more generous with checkpoints. I think it would be a lot better. And also if there were no like lives where you had to go back to the first world and farm, which by the way we did again. We did that again. We went back to the first level, got 40 lives even. And it's still like, we're down to like 11 lives or something now. The game just eats those things.
So one thing that I did enjoy, even though the levels could be frustrating, I think my favorite ones have been the roller coaster levels.
Yeah.
Where you ride on this skull, I guess it is, of
It's
maybe
a
a
weird
chipmunk
skull
or
cart.
beaver or something.
Let's talk a little bit about how that Crazy Kremland is structured.
Oh yeah, the other thing that bugs me, that's a great idea, because the other thing that bugs me about this game is it has these themes for these worlds that mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's Crazy Kremland, but also here's a bunch of beehive levels.
Yeah, so and I mean not just that, but the beehive levels weren't even we've played a beehive level in the next level after that in Gusty Gulch or whatever, Gloomy Gulch.
Yeah.
So when you approach Crazy Kremland, you go into one world, right? And that is where you do your first bee thing, and you go through the beehive, whatever, and then you're in the amusement park itself, and then you get some amusement park levels, and then you like exit, and you're like back in with the bees. I don't know what's going on. Like what's that through line where it's like bees go with the amusement park,
And then also, hey, here's a B level in Gloomy Gulch for some reason.
right? And Gloomy Gulch is supposed to be like it gives the appearance of like a haunted house kind of like the haunted world, right? And the very first level in there are like little ghost ropes.
But that's the only like difference.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's the same handful of enemies that you see everywhere else, including in the beehives. That's the other. I guess like it is bothering me from a design perspective that every world and every level is pretty much the same handful of enemies, the same, even if they don't thematically make sense.
Well, and I think that a lot of these enemies are so like they state such a strong visual theme that it becomes more of a problem, right? Like we were talking about how you'll see that in Mario too, that like you'll go to an ice world and you'll still see Goombas, right? Or you'll still see Koopas. But like those are so non-specific to a single area. But when you see, we were in the beehive and we saw that like big trench coated Kremling who like throws the hook at you, and you're like, you're a nautical guy. You belong on the ships.
Or like porcupines.
Yeah.
What are you doing in here?
What are porcupines doing in a beehive? Also, let's talk about the beehive, because you and I had a lot of strong reactions to this thing.
Hey, every time I see that level, like I hate it because those levels suck.
Let's describe them, okay?
All right.
So you are inside a beehive, which means the background is always like a hexagonal
like honeycomb.
Honeycomb, yes. And in some of the hexagons are like little bees that are like looking out at you. It takes a second to realize that they're a part of the background and not an enemy that you should be avoiding.
Which is, we've discussed before, a problem with this entire game.
Yep.
Like there's honeycombs that are like full.
Yeah,
and
they're
you
like
think that might be
solid
like
gray.
something that you have to avoid. Nope. It's just part of the background.
Part of the background.
There's disgusting larvae.
They're like pulsating.
It's so gross.
Look, Mark and I have pretty solid stomachs, right?
Yeah.
Like we can deal with some gross stuff, but this is too gross.
And I don't think it's part of like I almost don't feel like it's intentional.
Yes. That's absolutely right.
because it's not like part of a joke or anything. It just feels, again, just like not self-aware, kind of poorly
Yeah.
designed.
Yeah, and it's a bad like application of the rare design aesthetic, which is just supposed to be like cutesy, cutesy, cutesy. That like that's all the game is, right? Is cutesy, cutesy, and then some kind of like '90s rad aesthetics stapled on top of it, but not also like a Ren and Stimpy gross out. If that's what the game was, then like great, I would be all for it. But like, it's just it's unsettling. And then on top of that, these levels have a like filter on like the front of them where like honey is kind of dripping down, which two conclusions that we can draw from this. One, either the camera has like honey on it, or two, that we're like peering through the wall of the hive, which has honey dripping down through it. But either way, it's confusing. Um, and then the levels themselves are kind of annoying in that they always feature this like the sticky honey that you can either use to climb vertically or that you get stuck in if you're trying to just walk across. So, it takes away your abilities of traversal, which is like all the game is.
It, yeah, those levels suck.
Yeah, no good.
No good. But I do really like the roller coaster levels.
Yes, sorry. Yes, let's get back to the roller coaster levels then.
Yeah, I think those are fun, and they take the minecart levels from Donkey Kong Country and kind of change them up in interesting ways. Like the first one, you jump out of the roller coaster car instead of the roller coaster car jumping with you.
Yep.
And there's another one later where like a ghost is chasing you, and you have to get barrels that either increase the amount of time you have or decrease the amount of time you have.
Right, until the ghost catches you, I guess. Yeah.
And I like that the ghost can't go through these like saloon doors.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, and like the attention to detail on a lot of those things is really cool. Like when you go through those doors, Dixie or Diddy like hold their hat down.
And when you are going over a hill on the roller coaster levels, like Diddy puts his hands up,
Yeah,
like he's riding a ride.
Yeah, it's super cute.
So those are fun, and those do require. I mean, it's just like any of the minecart levels. Those do require memorization, but because they're faster paced, and you can get further every time you hit the checkpoint. Like you hit the halfway point,
yeah,
and it actually feels like halfway.
yeah.
And so so those I think have been my favorite levels.
Yeah,
Those have been the most fun. Like even though we have to repeat it in order to beat the level, it's the most fun I have doing that.
Well, so I think there's something to that sort of rote memorization when the action is coming really fast like that. That it is like a test of reflexes, and all you're really doing is like jumping at the right time, right? You're not really doing anything else, and the rest of the levels are like slower and more plotting, and like your opportunities for failing for not just having like quick enough reflexes are a lot higher. So like there's one level in the Crazy Kremland, which is called Bramble Scramble, which you get a hold of a bird, and the bird has to like fly you through. No, is it even a bird? I don't even remember. It's the whole thing is just like the vines and spikes, and there's very little room for error, and it's a lot of like yes, you do fly with the bird because there's a lot of just like gradually tapping A to not fly too high, not fly too low. And so you have to do it over and over again as to not fail, but it's not the same sort of just like test of reflexes.
And there's a similar one, parrot shoot panic.
Oh man.
Except instead of controlling the bird to fly, it just always like is descending slowly. And that's in a beehive for some reason.
Right. Yeah, and there are a couple instances here of them clearly reusing assets that start to feel bad, that start to feel crappy. So like in this bee one, why don't you have a bee friend or like some kind of insect friend that like helps carry you down? Why is it why is it the same bird, but he's a different color, but he's the same bird, and he has fewer abilities. And similarly, this last boss that we fought, the creepy crow, is just like a color swap of like the vulture characters that you fought a bunch of times before. I don't know. It seems like weird corner cutting that I don't know, just makes the experience later in the game here feel sort of cheap. And I think that goes along with our like complaints about the enemy variety, where we're like, what are these guys doing here? They don't make any sense in the Gloomy Gulch or in a beehive or whatever.
Yeah, and I kind of just hate the enemy design in general.
Sure.
Like, what's with the haunted shirt?
Yeah.
That
What's
throws
the
boxes
deal
at
with
you?
the haunted shirt?
Yeah, like what is that? Why is that a thing? How does that thematically tie into any? I mean, maybe it's a haunted pirate shirt, like
why? A puffy shirt?
Yeah.
We could do this whole thing like an episode of Seinfeld. Okay, we've enjoyed the roller coaster levels, right? What else has been fun? I was they're
I mean, I'm genuinely trying to think.
Yeah, genuinely trying to think of what we enjoy playing here. There are a couple levels where you become the animal.
Yeah, but I don't like those.
They're not super great.
Like the spider one?
Yeah, well, you don't really like the spider levels. You don't like making your own platforms.
Nope, kind of hate that. There was Ramby Rumble, and you don't get Ramby until about halfway through.
This, by the way, was another B level. How many B levels did we play? Like 4?
Let me one
Hornet
two,
Hole,
including the boss. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. It's too much.
Yeah.
And actually, that's. Let's talk about this other boss. Not the creepy crow, but the
King Zing Sting.
King Zing Sting.
So it's a big bee that you have to excuse me. You have to hit on its stinger or like its butt area. And again, this goes back to the weird hitboxes that everything in this game has. Where you're like, can I land on this platform? Is this thing going to hit me? It feels ill-defined.
Yes.
So you have to hit it on its butt / stinger, and then after you do that twice, it shoots stingers out in like 8 directions that you have to avoid. It does that 3 times, and it speeds up.
Repeat 3 times. And it's, first of all, took us a while to be like, what do you do here?
Well, you're playing as the bird.
Right. Which is already kind of maybe a first for Donkey Kong Country games, play or fight a boss as one of your animal friends. But yeah, and it's hard to like hit him there, and like the way that the bird spits eggs. I thought they were nuts at first.
I thought they were nuts for a long
They're
time.
very clearly eggs, though. They're like round and speckled. Anyway, that they sort of like arc, so you have to get under him and spit them up. I don't know.
Well, then after you do that, he turns into just a regular sized bee and has 4 bees floating around him, and you have to hit those 4 bees. But if you don't do it in time, let's say you hit like 3 of them but are having difficulty hitting that last one, then they all respawn. And then after you get rid of those 4 bees, you have to just hit him a number of times while he's coming at you.
That last little bit of having to just hit him a couple times, that's busy work.
And he's
right?
alternating between red and yellow, so you can't hit him all of the times. Yeah, that boss sucked. The boss, I actually, even though I handed it over to you to finish,
right?
I didn't hate the creepy crow.
Creepy crow was almost more like a level boss, right? Like that there was a little bit of platforming involved, and like you have to chase him up the creepy crow's nest or whatever.
It reminded me of like the bosses that we see in Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Yeah.
Where there's like a little bit more to them. And like the owl one specifically. Do you remember the owl one from Tropical Freeze? where it like shoots the feathers at you and everything, and you had to like
Yeah.
avoid those. Like it reminded me a lot of that in a
Mhm.
good way. So this boss I didn't hate.
Yeah. Which is maybe about as generous as we're going to get on any part of this game is like, oh, I didn't hate this. The music, I feel like there are fewer pieces of music in this than, I mean, maybe this is just like Super Nintendo standard now that I'm thinking about it. But like the world map music, that like da 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 is feeling very repetitive to me while we're playing, and that could just be because we're dying over and over
I
again.
think it's because we're irritated.
Yeah.
I really do, because Donkey Kong Country doesn't have the most variety either.
Right.
Um, but I have fonder memories of it. Whereas this game, I spend a lot of it irritated,
Yeah.
and so I think hearing the music is. I love Sticker Brush Symphony.
Yeah, but it's
I would rather die than play a level that it's playing in. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I've been playing most of those levels. And man, they're nightmarish. Uh Also, we've said that a couple times as we've been playing that, like, oh, this is a nightmare. This is a waking nightmare. I can't believe we're still playing this game.
I just find it so interesting that this game is super well regarded.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, honestly, I think it may be a just, piece of its time, right? And I would be willing to believe that if I went into original Donkey Kong Country, like totally fresh now, having like never played it, that I would feel pretty much the same about it too. But then I don't understand. Like I would like to play then Donkey Kong Country 3 and see what makes it different, that makes it worse than this game. You know what I mean? Because that's how people view these things. That like one is good. This is the accepted narrative, and we're challenging it right now. That one was good, two perfected it, and three messed
Was
it
like a
all up.
step down.
Yeah,
Because I don't know if 3 is considered to be like a bad game. Is it?
I think it is.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a lot in common between the Donkey Kong Country trilogy and the Godfather trilogy. That one is a solid film or game that establishes what it is, two perfects it, and then three is a failure. You want to just watch Godfather instead?
Kind of. I mean, I am legitimately dreading playing again.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm not really enjoying it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, likewise, when it's a relief to hand the controller off to you. Even though I know I'm like inflicting suffering on my friend. So this is an interesting thing too. We are playing on the Wii U, and we are playing with the Wii U Pro controller for the most part. But we're finding some weird lag issues, and I don't know if that's because the thing is low on battery or what. Maybe it's I don't know what's happening. But we switched over to the Wii U gamepad, and all of that lag has disappeared.
And I think both of those controllers, I actually like the gamepad better
Me too.
than the Pro controller. Playing the Pro controller like a SNES
Mm-hmm.
game where you are using the D-pad and then the 4 face buttons
Yeah.
is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're like holding it in a weird way, like down on the
Yeah.
grips.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it feels much more natural to be doing it on the gamepad.
Yeah. And I found you. We both have, I think, been looking down at the screen on the gamepad too.
I think that's just, for me anyways, it's like, because I'm concentrating,
Yeah.
it feels like to have it closer feels more precise or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I felt the same way when I was playing Snake Pass, that it was easier for me to play Snake Pass in handheld mode just because I was like closer to the snake. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. But also I think there's something to the fact that we're playing it on a fairly large TV.
Yeah.
And the game looks terrible blown up to
Yes,
that resolution and those dimensions. And so playing it on the smaller gamepad,
Yeah, that smaller screen with lower resolution,
like makes it look better.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a game that has aged well.
No, absolutely not.
Visually. Yeah.
I mean,
or I guess in any regard, really.
visually, or like the way that the graphic design of it and the game design and the repetitive music. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that the game has just straight not aged well. It's also possible that you and I are curmudgeons and we don't like things.
Yeah, I think that's totally possible.
I think that's the thesis statement of Nintendo Cartridge Society.
All right. Well, we are kind of nearing the end.
Here's what I want to say. And I hope this doesn't turn into a Legend of Zelda 7 temples versus 9 temples situation. But I think the next episode is going to be our last Donkey Kong Country 2 episode.
I think so too.
So should we just go ahead and say, like, for the next episode in 2 weeks, beat this game, put it to bed, let it out of your life,
Yeah.
and then come back and listen to us complain about it a little bit more. And then we'll move on to something different.
I mean, this was supposed to be the game that we liked.
Was it?
I think so.
I mean, the last one we did was Zelda. So
Right. Oh, that's true. But I feel like we went into this with the expectation that we would like it. We did not go into this with the expectation that we were going to dread it this much.
Right. Okay. So here's what we have covered so far on NCS Classic. We started with
Metroid Other M.
Other M, a game that we were pretty sure we were going to hate and hated it. Then the original Legend of Zelda, a game we were pretty sure we were going to love and loved it. And then this is a game that we were pretty sure that we were going to love and we hated it. So now we just need one that we're pretty sure we're going to hate that we end up loving.
So we'd love suggestions.
We would love suggestions. What are games that you think that we think we're going to hate, but in reality you think that we're going to love it? So I hope that's not too specific of a request. In the meantime, get to beating Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?